Let's make a good old-fashioned cobbler just like my grandma used to make. And if you're following along, we're going to start by adding 3 cups of flour to a large bowl. I'm using White Lily's self-rising flour. Also, I'm using butter-flavored Crisco. This is my go-to. This is what I like. But you can use butter, lard, you can use regular Crisco, you do you. But we are going to add about a cup of Crisco to this. Add 1½ teaspoon of salt. Now let's cut that butter-flavored Crisco right into that salt and flour mixture. And when you're finished, it should look like this. Now we're going to add some water. And I start out with a ½ cup. And I like to gradually pour this in because I'm looking for a certain consistency. Not like this because see, it's not sticking together, so we're going to add a little more. Yes, just like this. And I added about a cup of water. I'm going to shape this in a rectangle because I'm making a slab pie shell or crust, but you can divide this in half and make 2 pies out of that. We are going to put this dough in the freezer for 30 minutes. At this point, you'll want to make sure you prepare and wash your fruit. Now over to the stovetop. Go ahead and cut your stovetop eye or your burner onto simmer to low. You don't want this on a high temperature, and we are going to add 2 cups of whole strawberries and 2 cups of blueberries. And I'm just eyeballing this because keep in mind, I don't have a recipe for this. This is just me throwing it together. I decided to add another cup of fruit, so I added another cup of strawberries. And you could get away with adding maybe 2 more cups of fruit to this. And then I added a ½ cup of sugar to start with because I don't want this real sweet, but I want some sweetness to it. So I started with a ½ cup of sugar. Now you'll need a ½ cup of water, and go ahead and add 1 tablespoon of cornstarch to that. Mix it really well and make sure your water is cold and it'll mix better. And if you don't have cornstarch, you can always use flour, and you would just do the same thing and make sure the water is cold. If you don't have enough fruit or you feel like you don't have enough, just add a lot of water to this because you can throw dumplings in as a filler. But I'm going to add 2 cups. You want to cover the fruit. That doesn't mean you have to use all the fruit juice when we're through, because you can make dumplings out of that leftover fruit juice. There's you a good tip. But the ratio to always remember is 2 cups of fruit to ½ cup of sugar is basically what you want in this cobbler. That's been tried and true in my family, and that's how we do this. But you do you. Once this reaches the boiling point, turn that stovetop eye off and set it aside, and you've got your fruit juice. Use that Crisco to oil your 9x13. Now back to our dough. Go ahead and get that out of the freezer. It's been 30 minutes, and we are going to pinch off probably about almost 1/3 of this dough. We're going to save that for something else. And now we're just going to start pressing this into your 9x13. That's how easy this is. You do want your hands to have flour on them. And just press this out. And I like to use a cup. This is just my method. I'm sure they make a tool for this. I just always use a cup. And you want to make sure to put flour on that cup. And then you just start pressing. Now you're going to start pressing that dough to the sides, and you really want to work your corners because the dough ends up in the corner, and if you're not careful, you'll have very thick corners on this. So I get it as thin as I can in the corners. And just keep pressing, and I'll press it up to the top rim of that baking dish. And you can always use some tool and make it really pretty around the edges at the top if you want to. I didn't do that this time. This dough is so easy to work with and it has the best flavor. I've been asked for the recipe, but it seems like I don't know, I just have always just thrown it together, so it's really hard to give people a recipe for my dough. So this is my best attempt to give you this dough recipe. And voila, there's your crust. Just like that. Now let's grab that fruit off the stovetop eye or burner and go ahead and put your fruit in your pie crust. I like to strategically place mine so that you've got your fruit all evened out in the bottom. And just like that, it's looking so pretty. Now we're going to pour some fruit juice on it. And I left about 1 cup in the pan. I'm just guessing. And you do want enough juice so that we can put a few dumplings in here. So grab that piece of dough we set aside and just pinch off some small parts. You're probably going to use 1/4 of that dough. This is how my little granny taught me to do this. And then once you're done with that, now we're going to add some butter. I've got 1/2 stick of butter. I have found it's a lot easier to cut that butter lengthwise instead of in tiny slabs. Now, because I'm not doing the lattice work on top, I'm just going to press those dumplings down because I'm going to do something different and I don't want them up at the top. I did preheat my oven to 350 degrees and we're going to pop this in the oven, uncovered, cook it for 30 minutes, then cover it because you don't want to burn your crust with an aluminum foil and then cook it another 20 to 25 minutes. So a total of 50 to 55 minutes. And now, while that is baking, we're going to go ahead and make our topping. And you guys already know I'm going to make stars, so we're just going to cut out some stars. You want to roll this out as thin as you can get it. This dough is so forgiving, so don't worry about how many times you roll it out. I did cut out 9 stars total. I wanted 1 extra in case something happened to one. I do recommend doing that. And if not, you can just eat it. It's really good. But go ahead and line a baking sheet with some parchment paper. Lay your stars on top. Coat them with butter. Bake them 5 to 10 minutes. Do keep an eye on them. I did set my stove timer to 30 minutes so I could check on my cobbler and not burn my crust. It's been 30 minutes. I put aluminum foil on it after I checked on it. You can see my crust browning. 20-25 minutes later, got it out, and then I put my stars that I baked on top. I did use 8 of them. You can play around with this. You can make all kinds of designs to lay on top of this. But voila, isn't this beautiful and so patriotic? And thank God for our freedom. And thank you, American soldiers. Thank you to all you veterans